Hey guys, Jason Scudellari. We're inside of our tech center today, and above me is our 65 Mustang Fastback, and it's a beautiful car. Paint and body are fantastic, interior looks great, but we need to address some things under the car, starting with the suspension, steering, motor mounts, trans mount, work our way to the rear of the car. And what we're gonna do is control arms, bushings, ball joints, tie rods, motor mounts, trans mounts, shocks all the way around, get into the brakes a little bit. I'm going with Duralast parts because I know the fit, the function, and the performance are gonna be like OE or better. So I went on AutoZonePro.com and ordered a bunch of parts. So all that's left for me to do is get these parts off the table and onto the car. So the first thing we did was tackle the front steering, the center link, tie rod ends, and idler arm. One thing I did notice on this car, someone's actually upgraded this to a power box up here, which is kind of cool. Something I would do, but now we don't have to, so makes my job a little easier. Look at that, crusty, falling apart. I got all new end links and all new sway bar bushing, so we'll be good to go. Then we removed the sway bar. There we go. Now it was time to loosen up the strut arm and pull the bushing off. So much faster. We're only going to do pads and rotor, so there's no reason to disconnect the lines or anything because we'd have to re-bleed them. And I've already driven the car. Engine seems strong. I just want to pay a little attention to the rotors and the pads. The plan was to replace both upper and lower control arms, so time to remove them. Well, I got pretty lucky on those. That was pretty effortless to break both of those loose. Sometimes I'd rather be lucky than good. Get these old grimy bushings out of here. So we'll save that with our arm, reuse that stuff. I'm gonna have to pull this brace off to get the nut or the bolt out, looks like. After removing the caliper, I pulled the entire spindle off. This does not look like fun at all. I don't know how compressed that spring is. So we'll lower the car. I'm gonna start backing out the shock on top and see how compressed it is. There's two nuts we gotta undo from the bottom of the shock. We're gonna go ahead and compress this up a little bit so I can get to the back side of the shock to get that other nut out of there. Removing the shocks was easy. It got a little tougher when it was time to remove the lower control arm. So we really don't need to remove the spring, we just want to remove the arm. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this spring compressor in there, drop that down in there, and we'll use this fork that typically would go on a coil. We're going to use it across this plate here. There we go. We'll just let that sit there, pull the control arm out, just removing the nuts that are holding the control arm on the shock tower, and then hopefully I can sneak the control arm out in between the spring. All right, so I removed the upper control arm, and instead of replacing the bushings and the ball joint, you can actually buy the whole assembly ready to go. New ball joint, all the rears assembled, and it's only a couple bucks more. And by the time you pay someone, if you don't have a press to do bushings and then cut your rivets out and put hardware in there, you're gonna end up spending more money doing it that way anyway. And with a car this old, who knows how many times someone's hit a curb or something else and maybe tweaked something. Here's a brand new part ready to be installed. I got a brand new spring perch, so we're gonna go ahead and install that. Next, it was time to install the upper control arm. There we go. Just want to make sure your alignment shims don't fall off. That's what I'm talking about. Right back on that spring perch. Never had to remove the spring. Ta-da! That is a good tool for this job. Next up, let's raise the car up and reassemble the bottom control arm, put the spindle back on. We're going to hit the other side, the other bushing. All right, so now we're gonna step and repeat on this side. Same process, let's get it going. So these come with all new bushings. We'll go ahead and drop the shock back down into the shock tower. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna load the suspension up. That way you can get the spring perch level, drop the shock in it, get both of the nuts in, and then I'll probably have to load it a little more to get it back into the shock tower. So we wrapped up the upper and lower control arms, all with new bushings and ball joints, put the new shocks in. Now time to raise the car up and start on the steering. Time to install new sway bar bushings, install the sway bar, and put the end links on. Now that the suspension was done, it was time to move on to the brakes. With the rotor and hub removed, I needed to press out the studs so I can install the new rotor. All right, so we're just gonna reverse the process. We're gonna use the old rotor so we can put our studs down there without bottoming them out on anything. All right, so we got a new set of bearings. I've already packed and installed and put the seal on the back side. We just got the front side to do. So we're just gonna, what I like to do is just kind of do this and get it in your palm and then just start packing the bearing in. This is a dirty job. Drop that in there. And we'll go ahead and throw everything on. There we go. With the hub and rotor installed, then I could put new brake pads in and reinstall the caliper. There we go. All right, with the brakes installed, we can focus on the steering and again, work our way back. What's up, man?
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Good, good. Thanks for coming by.
Absolutely.
So I invited my buddy Gabe by, since I'm working on more of a stockish 67 Fastback. Thought we'd bring something in a little more pro touring, a little more wild, and kind of do a walk around. Let's walk around this thing.
Let's do it.
Just point out some cool things.
Oh, geez. Well, I built this car for autocross, so it's kind of set up to handle pretty good. I got my ET Mag wheels on there. I got Mike Meyer Racing rear suspension, Curry 9 rear end with 389 gears, TKO 600, transmission 5-speed, and TCP coilovers up front.
Well, it definitely sounds healthy.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of work. It's a stroker motor, 393.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, man.
Definitely appreciate it. Although it is a Friday and it's getting late and I got to get back to work, man, but...
I took the day off, man.
Yeah,
You're still stuck here.
Well, I got to get back to work. You can do whatever you want.
Right
Hang
on,
out,
man.
do whatever. All right, so we got a new center link, idler arm, and I just put together the tie rod ends. And you like any other tie rod end, one's reverse thread, one's normal thread. That way, as you spin it one way or the other, they come in and out. All I got to do is put the Zerk fittings in. First up, center link to pitman arm and idler. Now on to the tie rod ends. Once I wrapped up the steering, it was time to install new motor mounts. Got it high enough. So we're just breaking these loose, the motor mount's loose. I've got the mount, I think, or the engine high enough that I can pull the mount out. There we go. You know, they're not joking about OEM quality or better, right on the money. Throw her in. After inspecting the trans mount, it had been changed not too long ago. It still looked new. So we decided to leave it in. All right, so now that we're back here, I want to address something real quick. I did a kind of a pre-inspection on some of the car. One of the things being the brakes. The rear drums and shoes and everything looked really good, so we're not going to touch any of that. We're just going to change the shocks out, and there's a stud here and a stud in the trunk, so we'll start down here and then move up to the top. There's that one. Last up, rear shocks. Just compress it and let it go back. There you go. All that's left is to grease all the fittings up on the front end, put the wheels on, and take her out for a drive. Wow, I can already tell that the front end is much tighter, and I mean that in a good way. I don't have all that slop in the steering. We're gonna brake up here, see how the front end feels, but before it was really clanky and you could tell stuff was moving around, but I mean, no one behind me. Oh my God, it's such a difference. That's really a huge improvement on what we had. I mean, switching out upper and lower control arms with ball joints and bushings, strut arm bushings. That was probably why we're getting all that slop back and forth, because the strut arm bushings were so bad. Yeah, much better. I do feel like we need to do a little bit more improvements on the engine side. Throw that EC in there. But man, the Duralast parts fit perfect. Seem to be functioning really well. So the only thing that's left is catching back up with Gabe, hitting the quarantine cruise, and having a good time.